to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any adjustments or discussions on the agenda?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 1 is a public hearing, so I'd like to open the public hearing session.
No, motion to open the public session.
Could I get a motion to open public hearing session?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Call Mike Cirillo.
Good morning, everyone. This is a text amendment to the zoning ordinance. The request is to amend the zoning ordinance in a couple different sections. In your agenda abstract, it's divided up into 4 parts. The first part encompasses pages 1 through 9 in your document, and that is to amend Appendix B of the zoning ordinance, the definitions. It includes the addition of definitions previously missing or required to support changes to industrial use. The second part is the table of permitted uses itself. It's amended to remove individual industrial uses, since these are now clustered into 2 general categories, heavy and industrial, or heavy industrial and light industrial uses. The third part is a note, the note that refers to uses, this is fairly typical in our ordinance, about industrial and manufacturing operations. It's expanded to give specific examples of heavy or light industrial uses, and provides interpretive information for staff and consumers. The fourth section is an amendment to the zoning ordinance's dimensional and design standards. You can approve these as a whole or review them individually and vote on them in parts. I'd like to, a little bit of background about the changes. It's come at the request of the Economic Development Department staff, where they're interested in making the process for housing or attracting industrial uses to the county a little bit easier. I've mentioned to you in the past that one of the impediments to attracting businesses or building in general is the lack of clarity in an ordinance. One of the objectives here is to promote that clarity in the document by making it simpler. This is not a zoning map change. The zoning changes would apply to every zoning district except residential, which would not allow industrial uses at all, either heavy or light. Otherwise, heavy and light industrial would be allowed in every other zoning district with conditions based on the type of industrial it is, whether it's heavy or light. Any questions?
I got a question. On page 11, I think I'm right. Yeah, page 11, section B, down at the very bottom it says, these industries including such use as metal fabrication in quarries, asphalt, concrete mixing plants, and commercial junkyards. That's listed under heavy industry?
Yes.
All right, go to page 22 if you would. And let me get there. Give me a second. This computer's supposed to be fast on paper. At the top of page 22 it says, quarries and mining are not included under light or heavy industrial use, but in that other section it says they are. Now, which am I missing something?
No, quarries should have been taken out altogether. It's a good catch. Yeah, they shouldn't be included, should be considered separate.
The reason I ask it, I remember that every time we have anything to do with a quarry or asphalt plant one, we draw quite a crowd.
Yeah. And let me just check to see if it's on the, yeah, it's still retained on the, so that's an oversight, if I can correct that. It's still on the table of permitted uses. So if you look at page 20, you'll see quarry operations still there.
So can we fix that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, there's been some question about the type of parking lots that we allow in lots of different places, and I can't remember seeing that addressed in here. Are we requiring that all of those parking lots be paved or asphalt or what?
Yeah, we didn't change the requirement for pavement. It would be required for an industrial use.
What if you had some type of industry that you didn't need it to be paved, that they needed some type of stone for some reason? Could we make an exception to that, or are we tying our hands where we can't?
In this change, these changes, it didn't address the change in.
It did not address
It
it.
did not address that, no.
Didn't we change it one time when it came up with us dealing with Olive Hill Welding? It was something dealing with their site plan where a piece of that building actually went in, it wasn't actually on the lot that was zoned for the type of industry that it is, and they were asking for it to be paved, and we stopped that here when it came to us. You know, we left it gravel because they deal with such heavy equipment and stuff, and it makes sense to have it paved.
Right.
And,
One thing about this is that there's the opportunity for somebody to request a special use permit, which would be that opportunity to change it. And that would be on a one-by-one basis. So we could handle it that way. So there's an opportunity to do that. But we didn't include that as in our review of.
I was just questioning, but we still
that charge.
can change it when it gets here. It's not a,
If they apply for a special use permit, yes.
what conditions would they apply for a permit where we couldn't change it? I guess that's what I'm asking.
If it's a use by right. and,
Such as?
anything that has an X next to it. So if it's a use by right, it says that uses in the, let's say, take light industrial, for example, on page 22. Uses in this category are used by right unless they're located within 250 feet of residential structures as measured from the outside wall of any structure. Okay, so if it's within, if it meets that standard and it's a light industrial use, then it's a use by right. So it would just go through the administrative approval process. Now, what we could do is just change that to say that if there's any recommendations or desire to change any of the design standards, then they could request. Typically, what they would do is they would request a variance from the rules, and that would go through the Board of Adjustment. But we could make an amendment to it saying that it would require a special use permit. The standards for a variance are stricter.
But then
Because
you
have to meet a standard.
Then you charge them a fee to go to the Board of Adjustments.
Charge a fee to put in
Go
a
to
special use permit.
as well.
So something as simple as.
But the one by right, you don't charge them a fee.
Not if it's a use by right, no. No, then they're just approved, but they have to commit to the standards.
What I'm really getting back to is that somewhere down the road, somebody's gonna change some of these stormwater, watershed ordinances to allow, they're gonna finally figure out that water goes through gravel faster than it does asphalt. Right now, somebody in Raleigh can't understand that, but when they do that, there's gonna be some areas out here that we wouldn't have to have them doing all of these stormwater permits if it was impervious, if it was pervious, or if it's impervious. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand water goes down through grass and soil faster than it does gravel, but if, it depends on how much is compacted, but if it's just gravel, then, you know, what do you think they put in sewer systems and storm drains and other things? So, yeah, I'm trying for us to head off a problem in the future when you actually may have one set of rules conflicting with another, but I don't want us to get our hands tied where we can't deal with that without costing somebody so much money. I mean, you know, when you start applying for these other permits, and then you go back and get the engineer to change it because you had to submit it. The rule says you got to have a paved parking lot. They got to come get a special use permit. Go back and get the architect or the engineer one to redraw the plans to show the change in the parking lot or the property that they got. And first thing you know, this $200 permit's turned into a $2,000 permit. You know what I'm saying? So that's sort of where I'm headed with that, and if this is something that we need to address in the future, then we need to be sure we look at that. 'Cause I think that somewhere down the road, they may not give you full credit for being impervious on a gravel lot, but if you get some credit, it might make a difference in what the whole project's gonna cost you. Anything you think we need to do with that right now, or something you think we ought to bring back?
I think that we can handle the parking lot asphalt question separately, as a separate amendment.
All right, now I got one other question, unless somebody else wants to talk about the parking lot thing. It says for industrial use located adjacent to, I'm on page, let me see what page I'm on. I'm on page 30. It says for industrial use located adjacent to or across any right of way from residential property, the vegetative buffer is required. And we ran into a situation several years ago where I can name you 2 instances and tell you where they're at. That the person asked that it not be a vegetative buffer, but they wanted the light from the business to be able to shine on over there where if anybody was doing something that didn't have any business. And one of them was out beside of Palace Point, the house just before you get to that. They asked that that buffer not be increased. They had a buffer there, but it didn't actually meet the rule at the time. And another one that never did get built was when they were gonna build an indoor firing range on 501. That lady asked that that buffer not be built because she wanted their yard light to shine over in her yard too, so that if somebody was there, they wouldn't have nothing to hide in. So, you know, I would think this section, if you added something in there, unless adjacent property owners agree in writing to no buffer, that be left open enough so that when you put it in there, it is required. It don't matter what the adjacent property owner wants, really. They're gonna put the buffer there. And I say probably 95% of the time, you're gonna want the buffer there. I'm not disagreeing with that, but when you put something in an ordinance that says this is required, then that's what you got to require.
The only thing I would say to that is the person who's adjacent is the current owner, but when it's sold, there's no recourse. You
Well,
can't go back
yeah,
and
it
say
could be,
you
and
have to add it
that's
down.
true too. I understand that.
So the point of the buffer is because we're allowing industrial uses, which is a pretty broad term, in areas specifically in the rural conservation district, which has a lot of residential. And you know, you don't want to necessarily have some industrial uses adjacent to residential property. The point is to protect the property owners who are adjacent to it. Now, they may say that they don't need a buffer next to them, but there may be industrial use where they could benefit from it.
Mr. Attorney, for industrial use located adjacent to or across any right of way from residential properties, a vegetative buffer is required. Is it anything that we could add there that would allow them to look at it before it even gets to us without jeopardizing the intent of this? You know,
Just stray off the top of my head, perhaps you could put something, unless such structure would present an unreasonable hardship on adjacent properties. And Mike may say that won't work, but just responding quickly, maybe some language exception that places a hardship on adjacent properties.
Jimmy, give us an illustration of what you're talking about. Excuse me.
okay, I'll take the one that, just like I said, this was not industrial. Now, this is commercial, but it still was the same thing. It was just a smaller buffer required because it was commercial. Am I right? Commercial requires a smaller buffer, but the lady said that she really didn't want them to plant a hedgerow there where you couldn't see through because it'd be somewhere for somebody to hide in. And maybe I'm beating a mute point, but I just wanted to dial that if, okay, let's say you got a farm out here and you sold it to them, got it rezoned industrial and you sold it to them for that, but you really knew what they were gonna put there and you didn't really care for this 150-foot buffer, but it's required. what if you really didn't care whether they had it there or not? And I understand what he's saying. The next property owner might really want that buffer there, so.
Well, that's what ordinances are for, is to protect the next man in line, not necessarily the man there at present. Now, he could probably, ask for forgiveness, but to relieve the industrial people of the responsibility forever may be a mistake.
The other thing, if I can add to that, is that if it's a use by right, if it's a use that requires a special use permit,
So it could be reviewed in a special use permit?
well, there's two conditions, there's two situations. It could be a use by right, which would not, we don't engage the neighbors in that decision.
Right,
It's a-
okay, I
it's
got
a
you. It's
straight
already
out
zoned.
Administrative, it's what's written here.
All right,
If it's a special use permit, then there is that opportunity for the neighbors to come in and say, I don't want such and such.
so we could allow it at that point?
Well, you can, and if you look at the standards, it requires one evergreen or deciduous tree. It's not a lot of landscaping. In fact, I pulled back from what any of our surrounding counties do, and it's significantly more landscaping than what, significantly less landscaping than what's typically required. The idea being that a lot of those ordinances are, they're ineffective, really. They're putting too much plant material in, so I'm pulling back on the amount of plant material to give it a better chance of survival. But that's an opportunity for the person putting landscaping
So-
in to
so-
mitigate it.
So what you're saying is if they had to get a special use permit, we could address it then?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And
all
then
right,
it
all right,
would-
that's,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
that's,
The
That's-
neighbors
okay.
could come in and speak on that behalf, but again, as Commissioner Newell pointed out, it's
all right, got one
a
more.
long road.
That came up when we dealt with solar farm, I think on 501, because the wholesale side man had to do buffering years ago. And,
Right.
we didn't allow any on the solar panels, which some argued that we should have.
Right,
You know,
I got one more. Y'all will indulge me. Down there it says existing vegetation may be counted toward the required planting when identified on the landscape plan and certified. You list all of these different people, landscape designer, all of them in businesses, and that's fine. But if you're looking at existing vegetation, why come someone with the extension service wouldn't be qualified to look at that, or with the forestry service, either one, and say that it looked like it met the requirement? Or
I
does
could-
that
yeah.
put them into the plan review deal that you don't want them in?
Well, I'm trying to keep it away from the public sector, but if they were a private sector forestry person or somehow equally qualified, we could add something in there that said something to the effect of equally qualified person in that field, say with forestry. The idea is to get in there and just be able to identify what plants can be salvaged, so that people aren't having to overplant things. If they're gonna preserve an
I
existing
guess-
buffer, it's fine. We just need to identify.
I guess a person employed by one of these could be, you see what I'm getting at with that?
Yeah.
Looks
It-
like you're
it limits it
limited,
to
you're
these
limited
three.
who can say that's okay with. I don't know what kind of certification they gotta have to be all of these different things. Do you have any idea? If
Yeah.
I walk in your office in the morning and tell you I'm a landscape designer,
Mhm.
what kind of certification have I got to have? Anything?
You have to have a certification from the state to say that you are a landscape
They actually
designer.
certify landscape designers?
And landscape architects.
I know they do architects, but you got or landscape designer in here. Is that still a certification required for that, or can somebody with the extension service that's been there for X number of years with a degree in ever what? Some type of plant program, can they qualify as a landscape?
Says license.
Yeah, they could.
So that leaves the door open for somebody else besides.
Yeah, we could add that. We could add the clarification. We do that, we don't do that with stormwater, but we do it. with
Well,
water.
if you don't have a if the state doesn't have a certification for a landscape designer, then somebody that's familiar with that type of work.
Here it says licensed landscape designer, so who licenses them?
It doesn't say that?
Right here on page 30 of the packet, 23 of the revisions. It's got landscape plan shall be completed by a registered landscape architect or licensed landscape designer.
So they are licensed,
Yeah. They can be. They don't have to be, but they can be.
but you're saying they have to be to do this.
When you say shall, that means they
Yeah,
have to
you,
be.
yeah, they gotta be licensed if you're gonna do this. Now, does the rest of the board see a problem with that?
I'm waiting for his interpretation there.
The landscape plans, if it's a brand new landscape plan, that's what that line refers to. Landscape plan should be completed by a registered or a licensed landscape designer. That's the landscape plan, that's new. The thing above it, the bullet point above it refers to the interpretation of what's south.
But all of this has to do with commercial property, this is not residential, this whole thing that we're looking at.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that makes it somewhat different.
I would say it does.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it
right,
does.
I'm fine.
I didn't above say that it had to be a licensed arborist or a licensed landscape designer, but it could be.
Okay. All right, I think you answered my question, I just want to be sure that we won't get handcuffed into something that,
But you raise a good point, and that is, could somebody who has a background in forestry or is somehow engaged or employed by somebody who's in forestry, I mean, are they qualified?
well, since this is
I would argue.
industrial, I mean, you know, I want it to be protected as much as it can without being,
Right.
reaching way over too far. I'm not gonna go to the next one, I was gonna ask about existing buildings, but that, we took care of that one time before.
In here, it references fire inspector quite a bit. Do we have one?
We do have
We
a
do.
fire inspector, yes. It initially said fire marshal, I
Marshal.
think, and we changed it to reflect the current
I
staffing.
didn't know if that, situation that happened with the current fire inspector, did we ever rehire, or was that cut, in the budget?
We actually rehired, he's been on board, I think, a week or maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I appreciate y'all continuing on without me. I apologize for being late. I thought the meeting was tonight. I apologize for the attire, but I'll assure you that coat and tie doesn't make me any smarter, so. I appreciate y'all continuing on. Anybody got any more questions for Mr. Cirillo? Any public? Anybody sign up?
No one signed up.
Nobody wants to speak to this issue. All right, I have a motion to close the public hearing now.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, what is the pleasure of the board?
Chairman, could I just call your attention to some comments that were at your seat? The chair of the Economic Development Commission submitted some written comments. We placed copies at your seat. Just wanted to note those for the record so that you have a chance to review them.
All right, everybody had a chance to read that? All right. Have a motion up or down?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the text changes as presented by Mr. Cirillo.
All right, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, informal comments. We got a list this morning. All right. Excuse me. Margaret McMahon.
Thank you. I'm here as the president of the Friends of the Library Association. And we are, as many of you probably know, the Friends of the Library raise money that help fund specific projects that the library may not otherwise be able to do. We usually do this through our book sales that happen twice a year, which one will be coming up October the 6th to the 8th. We're also going to have a 5K run, if anyone would be interested in participating on that on the 1st of October, as well as we're selling mums right now. But all of these fundraising comes in so that we can provide some programs for the library that do not have to come out of the county coffers. And I have today our outstanding librarian, Christy Bondi, to announce a very special gift that the Friends of the Library are able to give through a very generous gift from Eaton Corporation. Christy?
Good morning, Commissioners. We're very excited. Back in February, I hosted an Industrial Relations Committee meeting, and I was lucky enough to have Miss Judy Gravitt from Eaton in the audience with us. And Margaret had mentioned that one of the projects we were looking to do was to add handicap push-button doors, because it came up in needs assessment survey that folks were looking for more mobility into the library, as well as a smart board and laptops. Well, after the committee meeting, the luncheon, Miss Judy Gravitt here had contacted me and said, we might be able to help you with that. It's with Eaton, so write a grant proposal to us and we'll see what you can do. I'm pleased as punch that about a month ago we were awarded the grant, and as you can see, I have to give accolades to General Services, Mr. Ray Fashee, because he helped in a timely manner. Within 2 days, we had our push-button doors. So they have been used well already, and we're excited to have them, and we just wanted to let you know that we now have these. Looking forward to, once we do have our smart board in place, having you all come visit the library and see everything that we have going on. We're real excited that these projects became a reality with the help of the Friends and Eaton Corporation. That's it.
Love the
There's no
video.
pushing the doors. I'm a movie star and I didn't even know. Thank you very much, Judy. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And they're not just being used for handicap accessible. We see mothers coming to the library with a couple of kids in tow and an armful of books, or either just senior citizens that may find those doors a little heavy to open, especially if you do have an armful of books. So it's been a nice addition, and especially not to have to use county funds. And we surely do appreciate Eaton being such a good corporate citizen to the Friends of the Library. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy.
Francis Blaylock. Excuse me, Blaylock.
Francis Blaylock, 1504 Cyril Mount Tozer Road. This morning when I got up, I cut on the TV and I heard a gentleman say that leadership is not being in charge. Leadership is defined as how well you take care of those that are in your charge. So ask yourself, what will your leadership legacy be one day? I spoke to this board some time ago about 3 things regarding the landfill issue, and I explained that Mr. Ed Musler from the permitting department said that a contract protects the parties involved in a business agreement, and that a franchise agreement only spells out the way the project will be constructed and operated, and then a permit is given to by the state once they have accepted that franchise. PC Pride has thoroughly vetted that 80-some page franchise agreement. We condensed it before. And Republic has been very careful to protect themselves with their language, but you have not presented us with a contract with protections for Person County. So I think you need to stop the process at this time. But if you don't, and you move ahead with it, I ask that you should invite a representative from PC Pride and one from the Environmental Issues Committee to sit in on any closed sessions and help to write a contract. You know, when you have closed sessions, you have always invited those involved to attend and give input, and I know about that. You know, someone from the senior center, you have them sitting, and you have different ones that are involved, but you've never included PC Pride or the Environmental Committee. And many of us have a huge knowledge, a great knowledge of the landfill issue, more so than anyone on this board, because we've studied it for at least 20 years. So why are we not considered? Ask yourself that question. We need to be present to make sure that those citizens closest to the danger have a voice. And since none of you fit that description, it is extremely important that they have representation. Closed session or a call meeting with a certain group is the only way to have a round table discussion between everybody. Here's a statement that was brought to my attention by a citizen in the landfill community. She said, if and when the ink is dry on the contract, and I do their contract, there should be language that ensures that the air quality will be preserved as well as clean, pure water, and the stink should not go away only when Republic is wanting something. Such has been the case during this time of negotiations. Now, I see on your agenda today that Mr. Kendrick has designation of landfill franchise fees for the public good. I hope you will give us a clear definition of public good. It sounds like maybe you're spending the windfall that you're expecting. Remember that we gave you a small wish list from those people that are closest to the landfill, and I have copies of those, and I will share those with you when I finish. And there's a third session also for negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the public body in negotiating the price and other material terms of the contract. Now, is this contract for the landfill? If it is, then don't you think PC Pride or a member of the Environmental Issues Committee should be invited to give some input? I have a couple of things to hand to you. If you will pass the wish list, and I'll give you. Thank you.
Betty Blaylock.
Thank you. I'm Betty Blaylock from Jersey Ridge, Rougemont, which is in Person County, by the way. The North Carolina law says that the North Carolina has a powerful tool against ills that come with the landfill. But it still takes a great deal of citizens, and this is from the government, by the way, but it was several years ago, citizen involvement to counter the deep pockets of the industry, because companies try to influence decision-making by using money. They call it economic whatever, same thing. The alternative sites, and the law that requires alternative sites and socio-economic and demographic data before putting a landfill within 1 mile of an existing landfill. And they lost this case. This is what it came from, because they already own the land, they bought the land, and so they never, that's against the law to do that. But who knows what the law says anymore? Okay, what good it does when somebody dangles greenback in front of your face. One of the commissioners, or several commissioners that I gave information for, I did a survey for 2 days this week, counting wells, and I found 3 more people on Julian Oakley Road with cancer. It is unbelievable. The roads on your report, on the whatever you call it, I don't know, I haven't seen the full thing, but I've got the gist of it. Says that there are no, the roads have not been impacted. Where have you all been? The road by the church has been paved 3 times in the last 10 years, and it's not even supposed to be used, okay? How many times is 158? In the 50 years since I've been back in Person County after a few years away, 158 has been paved, I know, 3 or 4 times. It was never paved for the other 40 years before this happened. Excuse me, 35 years. Never paved. Now it says no public wells are there. I beg your pardon. There are 3 churches within a 2-mile radius, a fire department, and that includes a voting precinct and an athletic field. There's an active racetrack within a mile, and 3 stations, service stations. Now, here's the key to what I'm telling you. There's a thing in here that says no, several private wells. What would you call several within a 2-mile radius? What would you call several?
10.
10. I've personally counted with the help, stopped at a lot of places and talked to people. Within a 2-mile radius, where I left out about 5 roads, okay, didn't even go down those. There are 491 wells within 2 miles in just one road, 1.5 in the others. 491 wells. And they were, in the lower part of this, it says they were not significant. So everybody I met Sunday and Monday, I told them that the Republic Industries, Smith Gardner in Raleigh, who I'm not sure ever even visited the place, okay, and 3 of you commissioners consider you insignificant. Consider you insignificant. I just want to let you know that. Everyone I saw was very concerned. Some of them had given up the fight, but on Julian Oakley Road is a disaster. The stream just a few feet away from the man I told you that had 3 kinds of cancer. His wife has a debilitating disease. She said I was healthy as a horse when I moved down there. And he said he followed his dog a couple of years ago who had run after a deer. And he said, I found him, and I picked that dog up. And in that stream, Cub Creek, by the way, comes off there, he said it was the ugliest looking mess I've ever seen. It was brown and red and horrible looking. And that's just what we saw in 2007 and 8 when we went over in the back way through the grandfather of one of the persons with us, and found that stuff coming out from underneath the big cell, and it was over 200 feet high then, but that was right at it. I could throw a rock to the beginning of the cell, and by the way, I can't even throw from shortstop to home pretty well, okay?
You taking a picture of that?
We did at the time that we presented it at that hearing, one of the 5 times they've been back for more. Now, so that is very sad. I don't know that I can find that slide. I somehow or another can't find them. And that was before I had a good camera. Okay. There's a report out there about the world being concerned about poaching elephants in 2 countries and their possible extinction. So it made area news. It made world news. But if you vote to give this company more than the 20 years which they were promised, and which you promised us, this board, not saying you will own it, but this board promised us, you will be responsible for poaching people of the Mount Terza Township. That's what you do. Poaching people is what you do. But the world doesn't seem to care about us. 491 wells, and I'm not even through. My personal visits to the homes on Monday showed me the horror of cancer, the misery and frustration of breathing difficulties, chemo treatments, problems with supporting your family because of it. One has had 12 surgeries. For all the deaths that have occurred, and I've given you those before, and the ones to come. And if you quadruple this, where they made sure they put everything in there that we had complained about over the years so that it'd be okay with it, legally, you will see the death of a township in Person County. It's no wonder Person County, Rock is listed as one of the worst places to live. That place and the one north has a whole lot to do with it. This will finish this county. What price is worth to you? What price? How much money is worth killing people physically and destroying hope in this part of the world to you? What price to you?
Thank you, Ms. White. All right, everybody have a chance to look at the consent agenda?
Move for approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
All any opposed? Next issue. Commissioner Clayton?
Thank you. My pleasure to introduce a couple of people this morning that I wanted to talk to you about a proposed section of Highway 158 East from Granville County line to Mount Harmony Church Road being named in honor of a World War I veteran. He got a late award. Congressman came here and about 6-8 weeks ago and made a presentation down at the museum. And at this time, I'm going to ask some of his kin people to come and talk to you about where they're at with this project and what's going on with it, so you'll be informed about it. And Charlie Lunsford and Susan Lunsford Cox are both here. I'm going to let them decide how they want to speak and what order they want to go in, but I think he was their uncle.
That's right. I'm Charlie Lunsford, and I appreciate y'all allowing me to speak on behalf of the family of Corporal Jesse Allen Lunsford, or Uncle Jess as we knew him. Uncle Jess was born in 1895, and he grew up on the Davis Tobacco Farm on deep southeast quadrant of Person County. In 1917, when the United States declared war on Germany, he joined the Army for the duration of that war. Went to Camp Sevier and then Camp Jackson, South Carolina, for his military training, and was then put on a ship for France, where he disembarked in Nice, France. And as I understand from old veterans of that unit, they went afoot across France. In other words, they walked across France. In September of 1918, the Allies made a mighty assault on the mighty Hindenburg line. And the British and French had run up against that line on several occasions and were repulsed every time. This time, the North Carolina 30th Division, of which Uncle Jesse's unit, the Company G of the 120th Infantry Regiment, broke the line at San Quentin Canal near Bellecourt, France. When they went into the assault, Company G, Uncle Jesse's company, came under a murderous machine gun fire. Uncle Jess was a little hard-headed like the rest of us. He didn't stop. He went forward. He got the butt stock shot off his rifle, got a hole shot in his pants, but he got close enough to throw 4 hand grenades into that machine gun nest. And he still had to kill the machine gunner with his bayonet on his broken rifle. For this, he was awarded, among other things, the Distinguished Service Cross. The state of North Carolina will recognize a veteran who has been awarded the DSC by dedicating up to 5 miles of highway in their honor. The county commissioners of the county where the section of road lies must request this. I can't request it. You guys have to. And a county official must vouch for the person's character, and the commissioners must pass a unanimous resolution. In other words, all of you have to vote in favor of naming that section of highway. Now, the section that we wanted to have named actually comes from just outskirts of Morristown, on the west side of Morristown, down to the Thomas Store, Glenn Fogelman Road, or close to it. That's 4.5 miles. They allow up to 5 miles. That would be sufficient. That would cover where he was born and raised, where he's buried now, where he ran a store for several years, where most of his family lived right along that route. So that is what we would like to request. Now, we have, I think somebody gave, oh yeah, okay, good. All right. Would you have any questions of me?
You have a group here that came to support you today, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
Would
we-
you ask them
yes,
to stand
we
up?
got A few, and.
Y'all stand up and let's-
Also have 730 signatures on the petition. We have to show local support, and I think that shows pretty good local support. Have the
Thank you.
petition. Yeah, I believe. Would y'all like these petitions?
I think you'd better hold on to them for your packet
Okay.
at this point.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to offer a resolution of support for their project.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
You got your support. I'll be glad to give you a comment on Uncle Jesse. I remember seeing him. I didn't know him personally, but I've talked to lots of people down there in the community that did know him. I'll be glad to take care of that for you.
Okay.
Susan, anything you want to say? You've been mighty quiet. I ain't never known you to be that quiet.
I am proud of my Uncle Jess. I'm very emotional about this. I lived and ate every meal with him. He was a bachelor. He ate with my mom and dad. My dad was his youngest brother, and each family here today is represented by one of his siblings. And he never mentioned this. He never bragged about it. None of us knew anything about it when I was contacted by Mr. Harold Davis in Wilmington to tell me they were looking for Uncle Jess's family. So, we're just proud of him, and he was a very quiet man. He was a fox hunter. He had about 10 to 20 dogs, and when they would bark, he would say, "Hush, Jake," and I'd say, "How do you know who that is?" He said, "Dogs have voices just like people, and I can listen and I know what they're saying." He was also born and raised in the Mount Terza Township. And this is where I'm so emotional. Do not destroy Mount Terza Township, where my uncle loved and lived and shared his life with every one of us. Please, please don't destroy it with that landfill.
Thank y'all very much.
Excuse me. All right, Sally Bone.
Good morning. As you know, the Jim Brook Highway is in place and has been for a couple of months now. As that was constructed, Providence Road was actually bisected, and you can no longer travel from one end of Providence Road to the other end of Providence Road. And we also have some duplicate addressing issues.
I went down there and got lost.
You're not the only one. I get lost and I make the maps, so. But there's gonna be some issues with some addresses out there. We've got, 2 sections of road specifically that have the same addresses, numbers along Providence Road. And it's gonna be an issue when it comes to public safety. The address coordinator, who is an employee in my office, has recommended that, we rename the shortest segment of Providence Road, to kind of prevent this issue with public safety. As required by the ordinance, we sent out a letter to getting suggestions from the property owners in that area. We received no suggestions after the end of the 10-day period. So at this point, basically, I think we have to do, and Brenda, you'll correct me hopefully if I'm wrong, we do have to have a public hearing on this. So we have to choose a name today and then have a public hearing, I believe in October. Is that right?
October 17th.
So I guess the motion to approve, we've just kind of tossed around the name Providence Cemetery Road, because the road does serve the rear of the cemetery there at the church. And so we need a motion to approve that name and then move forward with the public hearing in October.
We go with that name, and then we have a public hearing, and then between now and then, someone comes up and says, "Oh, let's name it something else." After that public hearing, will we be able to offer that new name, or will we have to do a whole nother public hearing on the name that's come forward?
We would probably have to redo another public hearing, but I'm willing to entertain.
Now, I have no suggestions. I just was wondering how that process would work, because most time people not going to read the agenda, but today they're going to hear that we're going to rename a section of their road, and they're getting suggestions before. We'll get plenty of suggestions between now and October.
Yeah, I don't think it specifically covers that in the ordinance, but I think it would be safest and best to redo the public hearing at that point.
Any kind of motion?
Make a motion to rename that section of the road Providence Church Cemetery Road, is that?
That's actually a violation of the ordinance. It's gonna have 2 new letters.
Okay, so what was your suggestion?
Providence Cemetery.
Providence Cemetery, okay.
Yep.
So that's my motion.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Too late, now since it's passed, but on here it does say court, it doesn't say road.
You're absolutely right, and court is an indicator of a street that's less, or about 800 feet in length that terminates in a dead end. You're absolutely right, court is the correct, court or place would be the correct option for that.
You amend your.
Can I amend it to say court instead of road?
Whatever you prefer, it'd be fine.
So I'd like to amend it Providence Cemetery Court.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Margaret McMahon. McMahon.
Good morning again. Our annual report, as you saw in the paper a few weeks ago, we've had a nice increase this year of over 3.9% in tourism revenue. And just to give you some highlights of fun things that were happening, our website continues to be a major source of our email inquiries. We established in March an app called Explore Roxborough. It's being used by many locals as well as for the visitor that it was designed. The app gives information to the visitors where to stay, eat, play, and shop, or if they're in the need of any special services while visiting. We constantly update this app with events, shopping, and overnight accommodations. Social media will continue to be a major focus for us in the upcoming year. We have a Facebook presence as well as joining Twitter this year. Geocaching is still a big entertainment mecca for everyone. Smartphones and or handheld GPS systems can lead you to a special hidden treasure. There are approximately 16 sites in Person County, and you can access those as well as other North Carolina sites from our website. Of course, everyone knows the rage of Pokemon. Brought many people off their couches to find Pokemon everywhere in Person County, especially in the uptown area. We all understand the importance of staying on the same page or branding in the same manner, so we continue to work with the Roxborough Development Group, the Roxborough Area Chamber of Commerce, the Person County Arts Council, the Kirby Cultural Arts Complex, Piedmont Community College, just to name a few. With all of these organizations working together to promote each other, we've seen an increase in attendance at events. We have a database since 2002 of over 32,000 names and addresses from website inquiries and events such as 5K runs, local concerts, as well as the Rocks and Roll Cruise In, which has a database now of over 900 vehicles. We've seen an increase in inquiries through our media promotions. We've been able to add to our database from events such as the music concerts at Willow Oak Park, the 5K runs and walks, and the other special events we help sponsor. The information gathered from these events helps us stay in touch with the visitor and allows us to better target our advertising. We advertised this year in the USA's Summer Travel Edition magazine, as well as USA's Hunting and Fishing publication. We are launching a new advertising program that targets visitors to special or specific North Carolina cities within our area, such as the Durham-Raleigh area. When someone goes to a particular website for information that may be highlighting these two cities, our ads pop up with suggestions of other things to do while they're in the area. We also had an ad in the Smoky Mountain Living magazine summer edition where we highlighted our new app saying, download our free app and come have an adventure with us. Much of our overnight business comes from the industries that are either doing startups and or training for a new company, or the energy plants that might be having their shutdown time for maintenance. The business traveler continues to be our main source of income during the week. Weekends have seen a surge of business as venues for wedding destinations become popular, such as Sunset Ridge, Buffalo Farm, Rock of Ages Winery, and Mayo Lake. as well as overnight business from the participants at the VIR International Raceway. Family reunions as well as school reunions continue to be a large part of our weekend business. One of the events that we help sponsor that's been growing by leaps and bounds is the Saponi 5K Run Walk. The annual event brings people in not only for the Saturday run, but many are here for a week. We have people coming from Ohio, Indiana, Florida, Georgia, as well as Virginia and South Carolina. This year they celebrated their 5th year at Mayo Lake. The Catfish Crawl Mud Run and Obstacle Course at Mayo Lake Park brought in a record number this year with over 350 participants and lots of mud. The Kirby Cultural Arts Complex continues to be a draw for the uptown area, and this past year 42,000 people walked through their doors. The free movie series that we sponsor was changed to a Friday night to coincide with the opening art receptions at the Kirby, and we saw an increase in attendance. One of the best things about the free movie series is that we are able to afford nonprofit organizations who may not qualify for a grant from us a way to add a few dollars to their coffers by selling concessions and getting donations from people that evening. Some of the groups last year raised $200 to $300 during a movie night. The addition in June of the escape room game at the Person County Museum of History has increased awareness of the museum. This game is staged in the Curtis Long Memorial House, and participants have 1 hour to solve clues that give them the key to unlock the door to escape. These types of rooms may be found throughout the country, and people do travel to experience them. We helped coordinate at least 8 organized group visits to our area this year. Most of these were day trippers, but we fully realize if they've had a positive experience, then they may come back on their own or tell other folks about Roxborough and Person County. We continue to have family reunions that book block rooms at our local hotels. Due to the addition of disc golf at Hyco Lake, we've seen an increase in tournaments for disc golf since we have now 3 disc golf courses for folks to use. We continue to hear positive support from our weekly Out and About program, which is heard on WKRX 4 times on Thursday. And this is very valuable radio time, which we appreciate having access to. A very successful quilt trail was opened in June with 29 sites. And since the opening, we've had many people call and ask how they've become a part of this new adventure. TDA was happy to be able to supplement the North Carolina Conservation Grant that was awarded to initially fund this project. As you know, we reinstalled 8 new Welcome to Person County road signs at the major county entrances into Person County. The new design shows the county seal, and this cost was approximately $4,200 and was done with TDA occupancy tax funds. Starting in January of 2017, we're going to work with many organizations to help celebrate the 225th anniversary of Person County. And in April of 2017, we're working with Piedmont Community College's Step into the Arts program. It used to be a 1-day event, and it is now being expanded to a 3-day event called Our Home, North Carolina. We want to assist in growing this event to become an annual event that is visited by many that want to learn more about our state through its cultural heritage in the arts, literature, food and wine, music and crafts. We're optimistic about some forward-moving changes that will be happening this year with events that we will be able to assist in promoting. As our citizens find all the activities in our area enjoyable and user-friendly, then it's easier for us to promote Roxborough and Person County to others. Please continue to let us know how we may assist you in making people feel welcome to our charming community. I did give you a report on showing that the occupancy tax for the year was in a comparison to the last year. And it's by the facility as well as by the month. I'll show you a graph for the last 3 years, how the occupancy has run. We're hoping to have a good year this year, but you'll notice our revised budget that I've presented in here from the 2015-2016, which was originally $190,000, and we had to revise it in April due to the collections. This year, We are using, again, a $200,000 budget. But we know that the Hampton Inn is going to be under major renovations this year. They're going to be taking a floor a month down to the studs and rebuilding. So we know we're going to have at least a floor a month out of the Hampton Inn that normally brings in the majority of the money that the Hampton Inn does. I did give you a list of grants, requested monies that we gave last year, and you see it's over $109,000. Now, I did want you to note that we did approve, at y'all's request, the money to the Athletic Communication Center, which some of you may know this as the press box and concession stand. And due to they were not able to get this project started and up to a point that we could delegate funds before our fiscal year ended in June, we canceled that grant. They resubmitted it, we reapproved it, and we've already given them their first check for that, with their second check coming in the third quarter, which is a decision that we all made together. Any questions or?
What would be the subscription circulation of USA's Summer Travel Edition and the USA
Well,
Hunting and Fishing Publication?
this is on it's distributed through the Southeastern, and it goes from Washington DC through Florida, and I would assume from a USA Today, their magazine publication, I'm sure they do at least 1 to 1.5 million copies. And it's just the Southeastern United States.
Will these be the only two publications you advertised in this year, or?
No, I'm just saying, this is brand new. We've never advertised in USA Today. Not the newspaper, but they are magazines that they sell. This is the first time that we have tried this, because we are targeting specific things like the hunting and fishing, for people to know about our lakes.
Some hunting clubs don't want you to target them.
That's probably true. And, but then also to give folks the knowledge that if they're traveling between, obviously Washington DC and Florida, and this could be a nice stop. We did have some folks stop coming from Florida going back home when they found out about the catfish crawl mud run, and they were from Washington DC, and they stopped and did it after finding it on our app.
Now, give me an example of what a tourism promotion grant would be compared to a tourism-related grant.
Tourism promotion is that you are promoting the area per se, whether it's a particular event. And then tourism-related would be an idea of showcasing the area and having people come. For instance.
So if I look at the grant request monies given, which one would be a promotion and which one would be?
Well, we
related?
use in this, for the promotions, would it be Hyco Lake, Mayo Lake, Person County Museum of History, Personality Festival was, and let's see, Jingle on Main was a related. Tourism promotion was the 5K Saponi. Tourism related would be the Person County welcome signs.
So if I'm looking at your revised budget on the tourism related, it has Person County Museum, Mayo Lake, grant/festivals, grant/festivals, 13.5. But then when you look at the grant request monies given, you got Person County, you got Mayo Lake, you got all them. So are we considering those grants? They're just not listed that way on the budget?
Well, that's good. We set aside last year $63,000 for tourism related, and it was the museum, Mayo, Hyco, and then grants, for festivals that are held in the area. Due to our increase, we added another $10,000 and made the first payment for the ball field and including. And this shows that the Person County Museum of History, Mayo Lake, and Hyco Lake were given quarterly payments out of that amount of money that they were initially given. Along with that,
we're considering them grants, though.
yes, they were grants, and then but it ended up the museum received something like $23,395 because they applied for another grant for an acquisition and some renovations of some exhibit pieces that they wanted us to do. Now, this year, we have a new grant procedure where the way 99% of the TDAs in the state are doing it, and it's on a reimbursable basis. You can apply for the grant, and we can approve it, and then you turn in the receipts at the end, and we reimburse that, and that's what we're doing. That's why you see on the budget for this year, we have already allocated, under that tourism-related grants, we have allocated, from a grant request from the museum, we've allocated $23,000.
Why the change in format from the revised to the approved, where it doesn't really give much detail? It doesn't show like the tourism related, it just says tourism related grants and gives a dollar figure, 63,000. But it doesn't say it like on the last year's budget where that money's going. So if I look at 15-16,
Yeah.
you allocated $73,000.
And he went to all of that. But we don't know yet. We don't know if he's going to apply. We don't know if he's going to apply for grants under that. The only people that applied for the grants so far under that one was we did we finished paying out the $5,000 for the Raise the Roof project. We allocated $23,000 for the Perkin County Museum of History. We gave a grant for the Mayo Lake Catfish Crawl. That's really something for Mayo Lake. We did the $10,000 for the Athletic Communication Building, and another $10 for the Rock Complex.
So your fiscal year begins July 1.
Correct.
One of these grants, you just apply for grants throughout the year, or
They can, yes, sir. And some do it up front, or some, as an event comes available. The tourism promotion, we've already given grants to the Arts Council, Picking by the Lake, and the Flinwick Beach Music Festival, and Personality.
So it was just a little odd to me to look at the 15-16. It looks like, in the budget year, y'all are budgeting to spend this on the museum and Mayo Lake and Hyco Lake, and then you have a separate line for grants, but then you tell me all that is they have to apply for this money. So I don't know what's budgeted or what's
All I can say
applied for
is that the
grants.
museum applied through a grant.
I'm talking
Wait a minute,
about our budget. Let's just talk about the museum.
Well, I'm just saying, the others have not applied for anything yet, Mr. Jeffers. So I can't tell you how much we're going to give them.
So Mayo Lake applied for $15,000, or did Mayo Lake apply for some of these
Mayo Lake
things
last
done at
year,
Mayo Lake?
July 1 through June 30th of 2015, Mayo Lake had applied for $15,000. They were awarded that, and they were paid it quarterly. This year, they've only applied for one grant, and that was to do the catfish crawl. Now, I fully expect they're going to come back for some other programs they're going to do, just like I'm sure Hyco Lake will come back.
So they
for
applied
some
for
other-
that in this current budget year?
in this current budget year.
You
But
didn't
the
fund it last
museum gave us a grant right up front that they wanted us to fund for the year. And we just went ahead and, gave them that amount of money so they'd know what they were working with.
So did you fund any Mayo Park events like the crawl last year?
Yes, we did.
And that's just included in that 15,000, nothing separate?
Correct.
So you knew that in the budget year, or you knew that when did you decide?
No,
Mayo
what
Lake
they
was gonna be
do is that
$15,000?
at every,
That's
at
what
the
I'm trying
end,
to get to,
at the end of every quarter, they would give us a report on how they spent their money. And it would maybe, they might have bought a paddle boat, they may have bought,
So when they get the money, the second quarter, third quarter, because they can apply for it whenever, is what I'm getting from you. It's not a
they
budget
apply
of
for,
$15,000,
they
from my
apply
understanding.
for it, and when they apply for it, they usually give us a date that they need it by, and that's when it's given to them. Normally, this kind of thing now is a reimbursable basis. When the catfish crawl, because this was a new program, we went ahead and applied the money, and now they're turning in the receipts to us. But anybody that wants to apply for a grant, they do it, it's considered at a board meeting, and then within 7 business days, we tell them whether the money is going to be issued or not, and how much they're getting.
Did you email us a copy of the ads that you placed in the
Sure.
USA Today?
Be happy to.
magazine, as well as their publication circulation.
Be happy to.
Any more questions?
I don't think Ray interrogated enough.
Thank you.
Interrogated or asked a question?
Interrogated.
Margaret, I would like,
I like to understand accounting when it's.
if possible, get a copy of the balance sheet. Do you have a balance sheet?
Oh, yes. I get one every month.
Okay. It's not one in here.
No.
And I would like a copy of your 990. Don't you? You're not
We don't do a 990. We are audited by the same firm that audits the county, Winston. They give an audit, and I'll be glad to give you a copy of the audit.
Okay.
Send it to all of those.
Any more questions?
It would be interesting that everybody that you give money to would submit an audit. So we'll be happy to. Ours is done by the same firm that Winston.
Williams and Creech.
Yeah.
Be interested us to see it.
Pardon?
Be interesting for us to see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're very transparent, Mr. Chairman. Our records are very open.
Thank you.
All right. Janet Clayton.
Good morning. As of July 1st, 2016, individual property owners now have the option to have what they can call an engineered option permit for an on-site wastewater system. This means that an individual property owner can contract themselves directly with an engineer and a soil scientist and have their septic permits issued in that fashion, rather than going through the entire process through the health department. However, the health department has to become involved at the later stage. And the duties of the health department are listed on the first page of the memo in your packet, and these consist of inspection conferences as well as routine inspections afterwards for the more complicated systems. The general statutes were also amended to allow the health department to charge what is up to 30% of what a regular septic permit would cost. In the highlighted row, we have 4 different types of septic permits that we issue at the health department. And on the highlighted row, that we have calculated what the 30% fee would be. For type 2, the fee would be $105. This is like your conventional septic system. For type 3 would be $150. This is your non-conventional septic systems and your pump systems. And then type 4 are your low pressure pipe systems or multiple pumps. And then your type 5 are the pre-treated systems or those that have aerobic treatment units. And you can see the 30% allowable cost. Our Board of Health met on August the 22nd and discussed this and approved these fees and requests according to general statutes for approval as well.
Mr. Clayton, can you?
I don't have a problem with it. If these systems need oversight and they're engineered, they're not, most of these systems are not simple. So I'd move for approval.
All right. Any discussion?
The only problem I have with it is the county or the state has set this up so that an engineered system can be designed and installed, and there is little that the county has to do other than look at it. And from what I understand, if it's engineered and stamped, then we basically pass it on through, and then the owner is responsible for the maintenance. If something were to happen to it, that engineer and that homeowner are responsible for fixing the problem because it may not be working according to plan.
That's correct. The engineer is considered
So
liable.
the citizen of the county is paying quite a bit more to have this engineered and stamped, and I'm a little worried that we went to the 30% right off the bat after the citizen has taken his time and his money and gone to a private entity and got it designed so that he could get it put in and working relatively correct, I'm gonna say, because I know in some instances things don't work as they always do. So I'm not opposed. I know we have some things to do. We have to file it. We have to do the site visit as it shows in the responsibilities. And I'm not gonna bump it just because I just wanted to say that the citizen has already gone above and beyond to pay for these other things, and probably in some instances thousands of dollars. And then we typically went straight to the 30% versus easing into it with another number. So that was my only concern.
Is this a fee on top of what they would have normally been charged?
If they exercise the engineered option permit, then they are not charged the like type 2 or like the $350. They would be charged the $105. Or
Legislature exempted them from the other fees is what it boils down to, but the health department still has to inspect this system.
Yeah, they have to approve the plan that is
By the
engineer
time you do
stamps.
all of that, it was, you know, I still see where I see what you're saying, but on the improvements permit, they paid the $200 up front, and the health department went out there and wrote the permit, looked at the soil, went out there and wrote the permit, did the inspection, went back out there and did that. And depending on what type of system it is, the reason you see the other fees in here is that when you get down to the total fees, they've made 4 or 5 trips out there, and if it happened to be a bad lot, they might have made more than that. So you're going to end up with this one, even though the engineer did it. The health department's got to go out there. They still got to go out there and look at it. They still got to go out there and make sure it's not too close to a well or property line or what it's supposed to be. They still actually they're making about the same amount of inspections that they did for the $200 fee, and they're only getting $105 out of this one. And it's not all about the money. The deal for the health department is, you got to remember, I worked there when there was no charge for any kind of permits. And in fact, I guess the first 5 years I worked there, you could write a permit anytime you felt like it was okay to write it. If you wanted to do it on the hood of the car, I guess you could have done it that way. And there used to be some stories about that, but I won't go there. But anyway, I hear what you're saying, but I still think even if they did an engineered permit, it probably was complicated to start with. So if it's complicated to start with, they're getting a heck of a deal for $105. I guess that's the way I'm looking at it, because I realize how many trips you may have to make. And if they find anything at all when they get out there that doesn't jive with the engineering stuff, then they've got to have the homeowner to go back to the engineer to try to get it straightened out.
From what I understand, though, in reading the general statutes, is once the engineer stamps it, it's approved. Basically, all you have to do is file it and go out there and do a post-trip inspection when it's completed. There's no intermediaries like you're talking about. There's no.
I know, but you got to sit there and look through those plans and be sure they got what they're supposed to have.
Not if it's got an engineered stamp on it. He's saying with his engineering stamp that he certifies that system is going to work accordingly, and we're going to hold him accountable.
I know that, but you look at the engineering things that we've had to come in here that didn't exactly work like they were supposed to. And 90% of them are going to be right. You're exactly right. But you're going to have a few of them that you're going to run into. So I understand what you're saying, but I still don't think that fee is unreasonable for what they've got to do.
Well, I looked at it, I thought it was an addition to the way it's in the chart. But, you know, so maybe it's got a different column in there, that explains it to me.
Like I said, I don't have a problem with it. I was just wanting to bring it up.
I know, I understand. I was just pointing out the other side of it.
All right, we got a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Kendrick, you have the floor.
Yeah, I asked that we put this on the agenda because one of the things is, well, I want to start off by saying there's no predetermined answer as to whether or not the franchise agreement will be passed or not with Republic. But as I talk to people in the community, one of the things that the people in the community have asked is that rather than just taking if you get a franchise fee and if you get tipping fees, rather than just putting it into the general fund and spending it, they wanted us to take issues such as what we got earlier today and say, what would we use this franchise fee? And this is not to make a proposal or to tie the hands of any future boards to any decisions, but just have a frank and public discussion about what we could use franchise fees for and possibly tipping fees. And one of the things that I had heard from some of the folks is that they would like to see that the franchise fee be used for broadband internet, the installation of that, so that it doesn't come out of other things that the county's doing. And so that's just a kickoff to say that's one of the things that I've heard about, and if anybody else has anything that they'd like to discuss and bring forward on record, then they can do so. If not, we can finish this very quickly and move on to item number 9.
All right. Anybody got discussion on this? Any questions?
Thank you.
Anybody got anything they want to add? If not, Sybil Tate.
Commissioners, each year the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners requests boards across the state to submit goals that they would like the association to pursue. So I'm here before you to ask if you have any goals that we can submit for you. These are goals that the association uses to, lobby the state for.
Eliminate stormwater.
All right, put that on the list.
I'd like for them to revisit and try to help us with the broadband issues that we're having right now, where the counties can't directly lease.
One of our goals.
Okay. And I think they're working on that.
Yeah.
one,
We are
so-
working on it, but we'll be glad to.
It just keeps popping up.
Well, we'll be glad to reiterate the interest in it.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be right now. You got till the 23rd, so you come up with something between now and then.
That's right.
Yeah, if you think of something else, let us know.
I just wanted to give you a heads up, we can draft something, have something before you at your next September meeting in time for the 23rd.
All righty. Brenda, have you got some appointments we need to consider?
I do. I'd like to present to you 3 applications that we have received from interested citizens interested in filling current vacancies on county boards and committees. For the Home Health and Hospice Advisory Committee, we received an application from Amber Ellickson. Carson County Memorial Hospital Quality Director has requested appointment to serve as a representative to the hospital on that committee. Also, for the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, Sheriff Jones has requested a new member of his staff to serve as a representative for the Sheriff's Office. He'd like to have Sergeant Cheryl Hughes replace Deputy Mark Charlo to fulfill his term to December 31st of 17. And also, we received an application from Connie White, who has indicated interest in serving on the Carter Regional Council of Government, representing Person County in that capacity.
All these all non-competitive.
They're all non-competitive and have current vacancies for the COG board and the hospice board.
Motion to approve all 3 applicants.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Chairman's report, I don't have anything at this time. Heidi?
No report.
Any commissioners?
Go ahead.
Good.
Mr. Jeffers.
We met with the, Chairman Newell and I met with the fire departments, and they presented with us with some suggestions on funding. Last year, in the budget time, we suggested getting with them beforehand. So we know we're in the budget time by January, so maybe we can have something worked out. So my suggestion would be, and David, you put some feedback into it. My suggestion would be almost to have like a separate work session. Let us give this to staff, what they presented to us. Let staff look at it, make sure the numbers are right, and maybe come up with some suggestions on the county end. And then us maybe have a work session to discuss that. Because we want to have something in place, I think, before January, when we start looking at all that. But that's up to y'all if y'all want to add another meeting, but that would be my suggestion. And the Environmental Issues Committee, which is our committee, have come up with some resolutions in support of some environmental issues here in the county. I'll send those to Brenda and have them in your box ahead of time, and then I want to have that put on the agenda for the next meeting. And then there is a group down in McGee's Mill community that are meeting about environmental issues that may impact them out in that area. They've been meeting for a couple of meetings now, and they contacted me to invite me to one of the meetings, which I live down in the area. And they want to address this board and share some of the concerns and that they have, and I'd like to add that to the next agenda. And then suggestion for when we get an organization like TDA that wants to bring us an annual report, they should submit this in our packet, so we have this ahead of time, not the day of. That way we can read this and do our homework and get our questions answered. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, you might want to add that they give a full accounting of their monies coming and going also. That's mighty general right there.
That's right.
Okay, Mr. Clayton?
Well, I had somebody approached me at the Personality Festival about a thank you that they're having for the Person County EMS, Roxborough Police Department, the Roxborough City Fire Department, the Volunteer Fire Department, Wildlife Resources, and the Sheriff's Department. And this was the flyer they gave me, and it's supposed to be Tuesday, October the 4th, from 4 to 7 at the Life Manners Warehouse. So they asked me if I would announce it, and I told them I'd be glad to, and I'm sure that they'll probably get something else to us before October, but I think we've got one more meeting before this date. But I'm just gonna make you aware of it.
All right.
No
Kyle?
report.
Trey?
No report.
All right. Have we got anybody here from Eaton Corporation? Okay. If it would be acceptable to the board if we could change closed session number 2 to be first, so Maynell can meet with us and then get back to work, instead of her having to sit around and listen to, or actually have to wait outside for us. If that would be acceptable, I hear a motion to go in closed session for session number 2.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank y'all for coming. I apologize for being late.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm not